Hello, and we are going to, sorry, I'll stop. We're going to be going through the chapter 24 study guide today because you have a test coming up on Wednesday. So, got to make sure you are prepared. So, we have gone through the first three sections of chapter 24. We did not go through section 4 on Antarctica. So, don't worry, that's not going to be on your test. And we're skipping the questions that have to do with Antarctica. But once again, if you have a piece of paper and a pencil handy and want to take some notes and write down what we go through, pause the video at any time. Totally feel free to do that. So we're on page 856. So the first question says, how does plate tectonics explain the creation of volcanic islands in the Pacific? Plate tectonics. Remember that theory that the Earth's crust is made up of several plates that push against one another, slide past one another, and create fault lines. Where two of these plates can meet, we actually have a lot of volcanoes in the Pacific. They make up the Ring of Fire, as a not just as a song, but as just a ring around that plate where there is a lot of volcanoes. So islands are formed by volcanoes where magma has been pushed to the surface at plate boundaries. So where plates have met, the magma has hardened and been pushed to the surface, forming those volcanic islands. All right. Next question. How did people settle the Pacific region? So this isn't just Australia, but this is the three regions. Do you remember what they were? Melanesia, Micronesia, Polynesia, and New Zealand as well. Well, where's my mouse? There it is. Humans settled in three waves. And when you look at the history, section 2, you can see this. 3 waves of migration. Moving from Southeast Asia to New Guinea, and then Australia, then to Micronesia and Melanesia, and then out further into the Pacific, further kind of around no major bodies of land, to Polynesia and south to New Zealand. Europeans arrived in this region during the late 1700s. So those humans were native or indigenous people, or like our version of Native Americans, but they're not in America, so you wouldn't call them Native Americans. So 3 waves. What environmental issues does this region face? This is in section 3. There's a whole bunch of them. So this region has long periods of drought, which is no rain, which unfortunately can lead to forest fires. So if you also wrote forest fires, or that would also be correct. Climate change, if things getting hotter, sea level rising as well, affecting these islands. Long-term effects of nuclear testing, where we were testing nuclear weapons out in the Pacific on these islands, and rising sea levels, once again, as a result of climate change. So they have that one island that's flooded, essentially. Okay. Question 4. Describe population density in Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific Islands. So remember, population density is the amount of people in a specific area, not just the amount of people total. But think about, where are there the most people in Australia? Where in New Zealand? Where in the Pacific Islands? So most people in Australia and New Zealand live in cities. In particular, in Australia, they live on the coast. They don't live on the middle of Australia because there's not a lot of water and doesn't get a lot of rain in the middle. New Zealand also, they live in cities. The population of other islands is considered more rural and spread out. And there's a couple of charts that kind of show how the population is lower in this chapter as well. So islands are rural and spread out. Australia, New Zealand, most people live in cities. Explain ethnocentrism in your own words. So we've come across this word before, I believe, when we were talking about Africa. Um, but explain ethnocentrism in your own words. I get American history confused too, because I believe we also talked about this. Ethnocentrism is a belief that your culture or ethnic group is better than all others. So I think the definition says superior in it, but that your culture, your ideas, your people are better. And America, unfortunately, has a lot of ethnocentrism. On occasions, when we look at other countries, we're like, America, yeah, we're the best, yeah. You should be like us. Yeah, that's ethnocentrism. And Europe showed this a lot while they were colonizing places like Africa and Australia, trying to change or assimilate the culture to their culture because their culture, European culture, was better than the native Aboriginal culture. Speaking of Aboriginals, what do the Aborigines and the Maori have in common? Did you see the Haka videos? I hope you did because they're pretty cool. Aborigines and Maori are both the indigenous groups. Aborigines are indigenous or native to Australia. Maori are indigenous or native to New Zealand. So those people today are descended or come from the groups of people who originally settled in Australia and New Zealand before the Europeans arrived. So that's something they have in common. Skip number 7. It's about Antarctica. We didn't go over that lesson. Part of 8 is cut off. I'm so sorry, but question 8 says, how do you think Australia and New Zealand would be different today if British colonization had never taken place? So if Britain had never gone over to Australia, made it a prison colony, sent people over there once gold was discovered, same with New Zealand, what would have happened if Great Britain? So, first off, the countries might still have been similar because another European power might have seen the value of both regions. Great Britain was not the only European country that colonized places. France and Spain were all over the world claiming lands, even Germany and Africa too. So another European country probably would have colonized Australia at some point. If European settlers had never arrived in Australia, the countries might have developed into nations run by indigenous people. So, a nation run by the Aborigines or the Maori. Now, would that look the same? Would it be as successful? I don't necessarily think that it would because Europe brought over a lot of technology and colonies, but I think they would be doing okay. They'd be doing okay. Skip number 9. It's about Antarctica. And then 10. If drought continues in Australia, how might its population and economy change? So if we're getting more and more of these times with no rain in Australia, how would that change the amount of people living there and the economy? More people might move to the wetter coastal areas, raising the already high population density in those areas. So more people would move out towards the city, causing the city's population to rise. Australia's economy might change as well because they wouldn't be able to farm as much, so they would have to find another way to raise money. They wouldn't be able to have as much livestock as they did, just because there's not enough grass to feed them all due to the drought. All right, so this is the end of the study guide because guess what? Question 11, we were also skipping. Reread through this chapter, the first 3 sections. We'll have Quizlet Live tomorrow at noon. This is Monday, by the way. And of course, the extra credit word for this test. We're going to stick with the themes, and we're going to go with Monopoly. So if you write Monopoly at the end of a long answer, I will give you extra credit. So Monopoly. sticking with the board games. All right. Have a great day. Have fun. I hope you got to experience some Google Earth, some really cool stuff. And yeah, all right.